What is up, ladies and gentlemen of the online Jamly? This, of course, here's Jamiroquai 2000 with the August 2022 episode of the QUAICast Podcast, a Jamiroquai podcast for the Jamly by the Jamly. Starting off this episode of the QUAICast, I'm going to be running down the latest news items about Jamiroquai and the band members of Jamiroquai for the month of August of 2022. These following news items are as updated as the date of the recording of this episode of the QUAICast on August 26th, 2022. AI text-to-picture websites have become quite popular lately, so I decided to dabble around with two of the most used, Crayon and Midjourney AI, and have them conjure up some Jamiroquai-influenced AI art. You can check out all the art pieces that these AI programs created for me, and I posted on both of the subreddits of the online Jamly. In subreddit summary news, I finally got around to curating and creating a master list of all my Jamiroquai-related IMGUR albums from over the years, ranging from Automaton Tour-era live pictures to much, much more of Jamiroquai's past. You can check out these master list posts of all of my IMGUR albums from the recent, the middle, to past history of Jamiroquai over on the subreddits of the online Jamly. In more subreddit summary news, I created a new series highlighting the iconography of Jamiroquai's releases from over the last 30 years of their band history. Focus on how much the band font has changed and other creative changes on all the releases of Jamiroquai's music from over the decades. You can check out this great iconography series of Jamiroquai over on the subreddits of the online Jamly. Several Japanese online fashion boutiques have started rolling out and selling select pieces of the previously discussed Junya Watanabe Man plus Jamiroquai Fall/Winter 2022 fashion line in the countries of China and Japan during the early to mid part of August of 2022. Links to these choice online boutiques in China and Japan can be found over on the subreddits of the online Jamly. During the month of August of 2022, I and the online Jamly online Jamly hit some major member milestones. First, the Jamiroquai subreddit hit over 2,700 members of the Reddit Jamly. So massive thank you to everybody on the online Jamly who decided to come over and join the Reddit community of the online Jamly. My YouTube channel also recently hit over 850 subscribers, so massive thanks to everybody for subscribing to my YouTube channel and checking out that content when you can. And of course, my respective Twitter account hit over 500 followers. All I can say is massive thanks to everybody in the Jamly who have joined all these communities and all these social outlooks. And let's continue this continued growth segments of the online Jamly on all of our social media. The multi-talented member of the Jamly, Jamiroquai, has been producing and releasing amazing Jamiroquai song mashups on their YouTube channel. Be sure to check them all out over on the Jamiroquai YouTube channel. Also, in a little bit of radio news, BBC Radio 2 just recently rebroadcasted a Exodus Bob Marley reimagined live concert with many awesome musicians looking back on retrospectively at the music of Bob Marley. But it should also be noted that Jamiroquai's own amazing percussionist Sola Akínbala of Jamiroquai was performing with the Kinechike Orchestra during this concert. You can find this full concert in its entirety for free listens for the next 20 to 30 days over on the BBC Radio 2 website. And while speaking of Sola Akínbala, he himself has been working for the last spring and summer of 2022 in the studio working on a new solo album, which will hopefully be seeing released in the foreseeable future. He's also been putting updates of this solo album sessions over on his respective Instagram page, so be sure to go over there and check out all the updates from Sola Akínbala while he works on his new solo album. In an Andalusia Big Festival 2022 update, the popular headlining band Rage Against the Machine has canceled their world tour and their appearance at the festival due to medical reasoning, and will be replaced by Bad Bunny. But Jamiroquai still will be headlining the event on September 8th, and expect full coverage of Jamiroquai in their only 2022 tour date at the Andalusia Big Festival in Malaga, Spain, on both of the subreddits of the online Jamly and, of course, on my social media. Also, in further band side project tour news, the band Brother Strut, which is affiliated with some of the band members of Jamiroquai, will be playing a live sessions called the Attic Sessions at the Camden Jazz Cafe on December 16th and 17th. Tickets are available at Brother Strut's official Instagram account. Also, in more tour news, it looks like Derek McKenzie is going to be performing at the Funktinifino at the Spinnaker Tower on September 3rd, 2022, which is a big DJ event. Apparently, tickets are currently available over on the Derek McKenzie official Instagram page. And another piece of news of band members of Jamiroquai on tour, it was just recently announced that Matt Johnson of Jamiroquai, in a solo artist capacity, will be performing at the Pizza Express Live in Soho in the UK on November 21st, 2022, and tickets for that gig is also available over at Matt Johnson's official Instagram page. And I should note, in a bit of a meta news about my YouTube channel, earlier today, or should I say earlier in August of 2022, I uploaded my 1400 consecutive episode of my recurring Jamiroquai Minute news series on my YouTube channel. I continue to feel very honored and humbled by all the online Jamily as subscribed and watched my YouTube content for their latest Jamiroquai news fix. So much more to come, and thank you again for helping me reach this episodic milestone. In further radio news, J.K. of Jamiroquai was the guest curator on the popular BBC radio show 2 Mixing Influences. In this case, the show was called Mixing Influences with Jamiroquai, which aired on BBC Radio 2 on August 20th of 2022. Basically, it was a playlist curated by J.K. doing intros and outros of some of his favorite songs. This full broadcast of Mixing Influence with Jamiroquai is available for the next 20 to 30 days for replay over on the BBC Radio 2 website. And also be sure to check out the connected Spotify playlist of all of JK's musical picks from the Mixing Influences with Jamiroquai that I posted up on the subreddits of the online Jamily. Rob Harris of Jamiroquai also announced that he's looking forward to be performing with Cody Fry on September 19th, 2022 at the Jazz Around Musical Festival in Poland. Apparently, tickets for this musical festival are available over at Rob Harris's respective Instagram account. And finally, when speaking of Rob Harris of Jamiroquai, he's become the first band member of Jamiroquai to start his own podcast, where he plans on reflecting on and talking about all the things that have been happening in the world for him and his interests. The podcast is entitled Funk and Junk with Rob, which you can check out for yourself right now on Spotify and Buzzsprout. And that is it for all the news items for this episode of the QUAICast Podcast for August of 2022. Links to everything discussed in this news sec portion of the QUAICast can be found down below in the description area of this posting of this episode of the QUAICast over on Spotify and, of course, on Anchor FM. And coming up next on this episode of the QUAICast, in an audio excerpt from the aforementioned Episode 2 of the Funk and Junk Podcast with Jamiroquai's own Rob Harris, where he recounts listening to a podcast interview and being reminded during his time with Jamiroquai when the unfortunate events happened in New York City on September 11th of 2001 during the Jamiroquai AFO tour. I would like to send a massive thank you for Rob Harris for allowing me to share this excerpt from his podcast on the QUAICast Podcast, and I hope everybody in the Jamily enjoyed this excerpt. And if you really enjoy it, be sure to check out Rob Harris's brand new podcast, as I aforementioned, the Funk and Junk with Rob Harris, which is now available on Spotify and Buzzsprout.
And then someone had sort of said, while you're listening, check out the Greg Fillinganes podcast interview, and I listened to that, and it was absolutely fascinating. Listen to the story of how he got the gig with Stevie and with Stevie Wonder back in the sort of 1974 and 75, and I was just blown away. But there was a story that he told, and I was thinking about it myself. He told a story about how he was working with the Jacksons in New York. He was doing a Jackson memorial gig. A reunion gig or whatever it was in New York around September the 11th in 2001. Obviously, 9/11. We all know that date, but it sort of reminded me of my experience of that, which I thought I could share here because it was quite surreal. We did a show. We arrived, I think, on the 9th. Yeah, it was the 9th of September. 2001 in New York, and it was my first time. We were there to do a couple of TVs because it was just the release of the Jamiroquai album Funk Odyssey that was just about to be released in America. So we arrived on the 9th, I believe, and got off the plane, dropped the stuff at the hotel, went straight to a rehearsal room, and as I said, it's my first time playing in New York with the band, and we had to rehearse a shorter version of, I think it was the song Little L, because we were appearing on the 10th. Yes. yeah, we were appearing on the 10th on the Regis and Kelly show, one of their breakfast TV shows in America. We were doing a live performance of one of the songs, which had to be edited down lengthwise. And then after that, we went off because we had a gig that night at the Hammerstein Ballrooms in New York, and it was really bizarre because we had the cast of Lord of the Rings came to see the show that night. It was the first Lord of the Rings film that was about to be released, and they were actually staying in the same hotel as us. So they all came to our gig that night. So it was like Sean Bean and Elijah Wood and Orlando Bloom. They're the only ones I can remember, but I do remember doing the gig, having a great time. It was my first time playing there with the band, and getting back to the dressing room area, and there's Sean Bean and Orlando Bloom, who I'd never heard of before actually, but Elijah Wood was there, and I remember walking I needed to go to the toilet, and walking into the dressing room toilet, and there was Elijah Wood taking a pee in our dressing room, and I was like, yeah, that's odd. I didn't know it at the time, but I walked in on a hobbit taking a pee. Obviously, those films went on to be massive, but after the show, we all went out for a little after show party, which wasn't a little after show party; it was huge. We sort of out all night, really. And I was just going to bed the next morning. We originally had a flight on the 11th around 9 a.m. But our tour manager had cancelled the flight. We were flying to LA that day because we were going to go. I think we were going to be on the Jay Leno show the next day, but the flight was cancelled due to us having the after show party. We weren't going to be in any fit state to be flying that early in the morning, which was quite nice of him. But I remember just sort of getting in because it was a really late night, and getting a call from the keyboard player at the time, the second keyboard player, Simon Carter, and him just saying, "Switch the telly on. We're not going anywhere today." And then just as I switched the telly on, that was when I saw the second flight go in on live as it happened. So yeah, it was a bit very, very strange experience. But yeah, and then we were stuck in the hotel sort of for the week. It happened on the Tuesday, and we were there sort of hanging out for the whole week, not able to fly home until the Sunday. But we were there with the cast of Lord of the Rings, which was really bizarre. We went out for a meal one night. I think we all went out for dinner. Yeah, very strange. But yeah, just hearing Greg Fillinganes' experience of it just reminded me of that myself. Yeah, it was a bit of a strange thing to happen. I do remember sitting in a restaurant one day, just going out for a walk and going to get some lunch, and seeing the guy from Everybody Loves Raymond walking past, Ray Romano, just walking past. Very strange couple of days. Yeah, very odd. But yeah, sorry if that's brought everyone down. I didn't mean to bring everyone down. It's just that I had a bit of a reminisce the other day. But yeah, if you're any music fans out there, if you haven't heard the Questlove podcast, they are fascinating. And that's the thing about these things. You hear some amazing stories. I absolutely love hearing the stories, and they do go into detail about nerdy studio stuff and drum kits and keyboards, and it's not just guitars, folks. It's I find all that stuff fascinating, learning about how they did this and that, and I love it all. So yeah, so
And that is it for this episode of the QUAICast Podcast for the month of August of 2022. Again, I'd like to send another big thank you to Rob Harris of Jamiroquai for allowing me to share his excerpt from his Funk and Junk podcast. So, as I said originally, be sure to check out that podcast when you can. Download it and support it. It's called the Funk and Junk Podcast with Rob Harris, which is now available on Spotify and Buzzsprout. So far, releasing 2 episodes, and it's an amazing podcast. So, everybody in the online Jamily, be sure to check it out in your own time. But that's it for this episode. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the QUAICast Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to stay up to date on all the latest happenings with the band Jamiroquai and the band members of Jamiroquai on the twin subreddits of the online Jamily at r/Jamiroquai and r/the Reddit Jamily. And as always, this is Jamirofan 2000, and I'll see you again really soon with more Jamiroquai related content here on the QUAICast Podcast. Take care, everybody, and have a great fall.